welcome back to Pacific Coast Broadcasting, where I do thoughtful sports commentary sometimes, and complaining about Seattle sports always. I want to start today's episode by saying, be sure to check up on any Seahawks fans you know. We've really been going through it recently, and we could use some support. Okay, if you didn't know, the Seahawks recently made 3 big changes to the roster. Okay, it was more like 2, and one that is likely to happen but hasn't happened yet, and they also kind of didn't really make that choice. It was kind of made for them. But anyway, number 1, they released legendary wide receiver Tyler Lockett to free up cap space. Number 2, they traded quarterback Geno Smith to the Raiders in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick. Number 3, wide receiver 1 DK Metcalf requested a trade. So in this video, I want to discuss each of these moves, as well as discuss the options the Seahawks have to replace the gaps in the roster that these players leave. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off by talking about Tyler Lockett. Don't get me wrong, everyone and their mother loves Lockett to death, including me. But we all pretty much saw this move coming with his age and all that. So it's probably the change that hurts me the least, which is kind of crazy to say because, man, do I love Lockett. Obviously, Lockett was our wide receiver too, and at the moment, the most viable player to take his spot currently on the roster is Jake Bobo. However, I don't see the Seahawks settling for Bobo long term. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Bobo leaver. Get what I did there? Good times. But I have to assume that they would look for someone of a higher caliber to replace such a legendary player as Lockett. The first option is, of course, the draft. We hold the 18th overall pick in the 2025 draft, and we could use this selection to draft one of the better wide receivers in the draft class. Some prospects that may be available at that spot include Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, who may be interesting, especially because his combine prospect profile compared him to Smith and Jigba, which, yeah, I'd be down for that. He's ranked 4th among wide receivers for the combine with ideal height and weight. One thing that makes him a questionable replacement for Lockett, though, is that he's not quite explosive enough to easily get past coverage, making him much less proficient as a deep threat than Lockett ever was. The Seahawks may also consider Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, who also has good size. His analysis compares him to Chris Olave, and he's said to be agile and have big playability. However, he's said to be nonchalant with routes at times and have poor hand timing, leading to frequent drops. These are, in my opinion, just the best draft prospects that will likely be available at pick 18. So they're who I would say are the best options if they seek to replace Lockett. I mean, none of these options are necessarily perfect, but we are trying to replace an absolutely legendary player, so I think that it should work out decently well considering the pick that we have.
Touchdown!
There's, of course, also the free agency option for replacing Lockett. There are some big names, including Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Hollywood Brown, and more in the wide receiver free agent market this year. I honestly don't even want to entertain this option, though, because it seems like the Seahawks are on a rampage trying to free up cap space while also building for their future, and almost all of the decent options for free agent wide receivers are either aging, expensive, or both. So just antithetical to what they're trying to do with the team right now. Ultimately, I think drafting a wide receiver with their first round pick is probably the most logical option. Unfortunately though, the organization also just had to go and trade away Geno Smith. So now, the problem of having to fill the wide receiver position is twice as difficult because we also have to fill the gaping void that Geno Smith left at the quarterback position. Now, speaking of Geno's trade, there's a similar set of options for replacing him. There's of course the option of sticking with this season's backup quarterback in Sam Howell, but similarly to Jake Bobo, I wouldn't imagine the Seahawks want to have Sam Howell under center for the foreseeable future. So let's talk about the draft. This is an extremely weak quarterback draft, unfortunately, and the only 2 options in the whole draft that really stand out to me as no-brainer picks are Miami's Cam Ward and Colorado's Shedeur Sanders, neither of which have any real chance of getting drafted outside of the top 5 picks, let alone as low as pick 18. So at the top of this QB draft class, you have these 2, and then a massive gap, and you have some quarterbacks that the Seahawks may be able to pick up. These include Alabama's Jalen Milroe and Ole Miss's Jackson Dart. Both are admittedly disappointing prospects, each coming in with a prospect rank of around 6.2, and each seem to have about as many notable pros as they do cons, meaning they're more likely to become backups than anything. Between the 2, I'd probably go with Jackson Dart, mostly because Jalen Milroe's 2024 season was so bad, throwing 5 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Yikes. To be honest though, you could probably just flip a coin to decide between the 2, because ultimately I would not be surprised if both just ended up delivering the same degree of mediocrity. So if you can't tell, I'm not super stoked on that idea. So instead, let's go to an option I'm a lot happier about. In this case, I think the option of signing a free agent could be pretty beneficial for us. I'm pretty good with the idea people are floating around of acquiring Sam Darnold specifically. Unfortunately, Sam Darnold is seen as worth way more than any of the other free agent QBs, thanks to his miracle season this year. He may end up being a bit more expensive than Geno was, but I'm confident that he can produce at a level that either matches or exceeds Geno. Plus, while Darnold isn't necessarily young, he's way younger than Geno, meaning we could have him under center for years as we rebuild. Plus, as the cherry on top, Darnold would be reuniting with OC Clint Kubiak, who worked with him during his stint in San Francisco. I see Darnold as more of a medium to long-term solution at quarterback, but I could also see us going for more of a bridge quarterback option. So maybe somebody like Justin Fields could serve as a high upside quarterback to play while we rebuild and look for someone to permanently fill the position. I think our best option, all considered, is still to take a chance on a quarterback like Darnold, but I also think that with us going full nuclear, we could also just have a bridge year and tank for a good draft pick, hopefully to get a franchise quarterback. And lastly, DK Metcalf. I won't really talk as much about DK here, for one, because we don't know for sure that we will trade him away yet, and second, there's just less speculation about who will replace him. I mean, realistically, Jackson Smith and Jigba will just take over his post. And he's proved to be a fantastic receiver in the NFL, so I'm not upset about that. And outside of that, most of what I said about Lockett applies to Metcalf as well. If we wanted to draft his replacement, the options would be slim, and if we wanted to sign someone in free agency to replace him, no signing would really be in the favor of the team's development. All in all, I have to be honest. I've tried to be very positive throughout this video and not go on a rant about anything, but I'm not very happy with the moves the organization made here. I understand that certain aspects of this were out of the organization's control. Lockett was aging, and Metcalf was the one that wanted out, not us wanting him out. But even so, the one move I really cannot wrap my head around is trading away Geno. We may not have been a contender this year, but we were a 10-win team, and one whose flaws were obvious, but easily fixable. What we needed was an O-line to support the quarterback we already had in Geno. And I truly believe that we could have gone on a deep playoff run doing this. But instead, we decided to go the nuclear option. And instead of fixing what was problematic, we got rid of pretty much all the things that were going right for the team this year. And on top of that, by deciding to start a rebuild after a season like this, it essentially guarantees that the rebuild will take much longer, because our draft picks for 2025 are really not that great. But I really just wanted to make this video to look at the bright side of things, and to consider what new outlook these changes to the team could mean. And look, if this whole rebuild ends up working out for us, I'll eat my words. But all I can do for now is sit back and hope that the organization knows what they're doing. Because if they don't, it could mean a long couple of years of Seahawk football are ahead of us. Well, thanks to all of you for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, because not only will that help my channel to grow, but it will also help to ease the pain I feel anytime I think about this team. See you next time.
Let's take a look. Catch, feet, that is unbelievable. If you'd have told me that his feet were in play, I'd have said there is no